So we're going to start by taking a quick look at the SP360. It's Kodak's new PIXPRO action camera. The big thing with this camera is it's not really a traditional action camera. In fact, it's kind of unique on its own. First off the bat, it comes with a ton of accessories, and we're mainly going to focus on that in this first half. It's just all the stuff it comes with. So we'll start with the box that contains the camera itself. So we have the battery. Put this in right here. There's a unlock, and then you sort of push, pull out, and it's got these little grooves here, so you can only lock in one way. Put our battery in. Snap it in, lock it in, bam. So we have our glass lens cap, and on top of that we have a normal lens cap to protect the lens when we're not using it. Take this away. We have our sort of action case. It's not waterproof, but it does protect it from some of the element and helps absorb some of the shock. So, and we got the ball head mount right there. Comes with a sort of roll bar mount or more of a bicycle mount. We have two ball head mount adapters. We have our head mount. We have our vented helmet mount. We have our external battery charger and a USB cable to charge the camera with the battery inside. We have the to-go case, so it doesn't get damaged. Basically a bag of parts with some adhesive mounts. We have warranty quick guides and manuals. We have a cleaning cloth to keep everything all nice and shiny. We have some tethers. Have some adhesive mounts, both flat and curved. Alright, so we're going to start by taking a look at the body now of the PIXPRO SP360. We got our sort of tripod mount here. It is splash and dust resistant, and we have our sort of micro SD card here. Only supports up to 32 gigabytes. Then we have our micro B USB, and then our HDMI out. It also features stereo microphones, and I'm pretty sure one of these is, these actually both might be stereo speakers. I don't think these are, I'm sorry, stereo microphones, not speakers. We have our buttons here. Basically, this is, we're gonna hold that, turn it on. We'll get to these in a second. And then we also have NFC. So if we actually want to pair it to our phone right away, if you have a phone that supports it, iPhones don't have NFC, but most other phones do. You basically just push it up against it, and it'll automatically connect. If you don't have the software, it'll notify you to where you can download the software, and then if you have the software, it'll just automatically connect it, start off the app, and you'll be live viewing out of this device. Now, while you're recording, you can actually continue to see a live view of the footage you're recording, which is pretty cool. And it's actually a lot easier to navigate through some of these menus using the app itself. Now, on iOS 8, I've noticed some issues with the app, but overall it's a much easier experience because the SP360 is an incredibly complicated camera, and if you're looking for a camera that you can just get and quickly get into, this is not really the camera. This requires a lot of digging around. Basically, what you're going to want to do is dive right into the manual at first, because just even like when you first start up the app, it's going to ask you to connect it to a phone, just because going through these menus is kind of tough. On the phone, it's much straightforward, but we'll just dive into this real quick. There's going to be some beeping, so we'll turn the Wi-Fi off for now, and basically we have our mode button, which basically allows us to switch between photo, time-lapse, bursts and stuff like that, turn our Wi-Fi back on, or the video camera. So we'll stay with the video camera, and then what we'll do is we'll press this little down arrow right here, and this will allow us to sort of cycle through the options. Now, it seems like we only have 3 options here, but if we actually press the record button on that video camera icon, this is where we can now pick a lot more of our deeper settings. Now, that little running guy is a motion sensor. We have our little wind microphone, auto white balance. But let's say we want to change the unfolding modes. Now, we'll get into those in a second, but we're actually going to see the panorama icon here. We'll press the record button, and now we can cycle through all of these different unfolding modes, which is like sort of the 16:9 format. We can do panorama, we can do front and back, we can do a full 360 ring, or we can do the dome. And then we'll select, let's say, panorama, because that's generally the one I want to use, and then from here I can go and choose if I want to do 1440 1:1, so a square box. If I want to switch that, these are the options I have for Panorama, for different types of recording style. There's a whole bunch of them here. And basically every mode is kind of like this. Everything has its own sort of thing. Like if you want to turn on, this camera can actually do motion detection. So if you want to use this as a security camera or like a wildlife cam, you can actually set it so it automatically starts recording once it detects motion, which is pretty cool. So if you want to record wildlife, that's a really good way to sort of set it out. And it's got a pretty powerful battery that it can do that. So again, we have this sort of big dome lens here. The one thing that's kind of problematic is if you touch it, it captures fingerprints really easy, and with the 360-degree field, you're going to capture those fingerprints pretty instantly. Now, in terms of recording mode, you could do 1080p, 1080p 30 frames a second, or 720p 60 frames a second. And if you want, you could do 480 at 120 frames a second. But that's only for the 16:9 mode. That's sort of a traditional front-facing camera. If you want to do the 360-degree lens, you're going to be looking at a limitation of doing 1440 by 1440 at 30 frames a second. Or you can bump that down for some reason if you wanted to 1072 by 1072. But yeah, like I was saying, this is a tough camera to get into. You start off by downloading the PDF manual and just reading through that, because this camera does a lot of things other cameras don't do. Now, we were talking about the sort of unfolding modes before. There's the dome mode, which is basically your sort of HDR style image. You have your front, which is the traditional sort of like GoPro or Sony style camera where it's just doing a 16:9 image. Then you have your segmented view, which is actually pretty cool. It gives you a front and back view. It just sort of cuts out your frame automatically. Then you have the ring, which is your full 100 and 360 degree, and so is the Panorama. I don't really know the big difference of these two, other than I assume the ring is where you can position sort of a camera in the middle, and later on in software you can use it to, the viewer can actually spin the camera around as they want. I was messing around with the software, and while it's possible to export a lot of these unfolding modes right out of the software for photos, I can't find a way to do it for videos, and I'm not really trying to toot my own horn here, but I do know a lot about video stuff, and I cannot figure out how to unfold these videos from the Kodak software. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's no way, because other reviewers I've seen are putting up HDR clips like this where they're just completely unfolded. Now, when you bring the when you bring this footage into the software, you can see all that. You can see all the unfolding modes, and what's actually really cool is pretty much whatever format you record in a 1:1 format, you can then unfold the footage there. So let's say you filmed on set with the intention of doing a 360-degree panorama. Well, let's say later on you wanted to do the ring, or you wanted to do the segmented view. You actually have the option in the Kodak software to preview it in all 4 of those modes. However, I just can't find a way to export the video out of that, and that's kind of a tough sell, because you have all these awesome HDR videos, but unless I start doing some heavy digging into like Adobe Premiere or maybe Studio Max and stuff like that on how to actually unfold these textures, I don't really know how to use them. But when it comes to the photos, you can export those. You can just go File, Save As, but you're not given a lot of options. You basically can just pick your JPEG, your unfolding mode, and that's really it. But the camera does come in sort of 3 sensor sizes, but generally if you're doing a panorama, you're going to be filming with a 10 megapixel sensor, and your photo is going to be 3264 by 3264. So again, that 1:1 format. Actually, that's the sensor resolution, but when you stretch it out, it'll be different. Now, in terms of photo mode, you still have a couple of modes. You have photo, burst, time lapse, loop recording, and stuff like that. And if you're doing loop recording, basically, it'll keep recording every set duration, and basically when you press the record button, it'll record that X amount of minutes that you told it to. And then if it gets to a point where the card's full, it'll just start overlapping those original clips. But generally, you won't fill the card in loop mode. It's to avoid that. Some things that this does really cool. Again, we mentioned the NFC, so if we want to pair it to a phone, we can do that real quick. We also have Wi-Fi built in. Again, it's totally very crucial to this, and the fact that you can see what you're recording while it's recording is a huge plus. I haven't really seen any other helmet cameras doing that. We have a built-in image stabilizer, which is automatically working, I believe, because there is no option here to turn it on or off, and it's only mentioned once in the manual. We mentioned sort of splash proof. The image sensor itself is 16.36 usable, but it's actually a 7 megapixel sensor. It actually has built-in internal memory, but it's only 8 megabytes, so the only thing I see that really useful for is firmware. And this actually had a firmware at launch, super easy to install. Just put the file on the micro SD card and then just pressed the firmware button in the options menu. Took about 1 minute. Has a stereo microphone, and I tried it out with the sort of 16:9 traditional recording mode and the sort of panorama mode, and didn't really notice a big impact in audio. I did notice it in the panorama mode. It had a slightly higher amount of range, but honestly, it's not enough to really tell unless you're looking at a timeline and you're looking at all the individual waveforms. So we'll actually put a video somewhere in here that you can click that'll open up another window if you want to listen to that audio test. I suggest you click it, just pause it, and then come back here. Yeah, we have the stereo mic, we have the LCD, we have all the accessories that came with it. This is a really cool camera. I just think it needs to get a little simpler from a software side for users. Even somebody that's me that's going to go after this, I see this as a really potentially cool camera. The potential of mountain biking downhill and just having this on the top of your head and all of your friends are around you, or if you're cycling through the city and you want a good security camera to kind of, if somebody clips you or something like that, the ability to record everything is great. The only situation that kind of concerns me is that with a lens this wide, you're going to have a lot of distortion, and it's basically unavoidable, because as soon as things get close to this, they get really, really distorted. So if you do get hit, I'm kind of concerned if it will even pick up that that license plate, because we have noticed that even though this is such a high megapixel sensor and stuff like that, and with the high degree of distortion we're seeing, the image quality after it's been undistorted can be fairly poor. And before battery, it's about 103 grams, which is pretty heavy. We now have the battery in there. Take a look at this real quick. But before battery, 103 grams. After battery, after battery, 130 grams. So it's a little heavy, but you can potentially film up to 160 minutes on 1080p with the 32 gig card. Again, if you're doing wildlife stuff, the motion detection is really cool. It's got an underwater white balance mode, so hopefully it'll pump in a little extra red there and stuff like that. But this is a very creative camera. I like where it's going. It's thinking completely outside of the box. My only concern is it's just a little too complicated. Anyway, guys, we're going to do a lot more tests. We're going to try and break down this camera and find the best way to use it. I think it has a huge amount of potential. It's going to give you some creative shots that not a lot of other people are going to get. And it's not just another GoPro clone. It's really creative. It's well built. It's smart. Things like the battery compartment, just having like these sort of little notches and stuff like that. That way, even if you forget to lock it, it holds on great. Anyway, guys, this has been Kodak's new PIXPRO SP360. Now we're going to be trying to unlock a lot of its potential, but I'm going to need your guys' help on what we can actually do creatively with the SP360. Again, there's a lot of potential. Having 360-degree time-lapse videos that the viewer themselves can sort of spin them around and get fully immersed in is really awesome. I just don't know how to do it, because you really can't do it with the PIXPRO software that you get right now. However, the potential's there. We just have to find a way to unlock it. So share your results in the comments. Link me to results you've seen. I'm going to be sharing my own throughout the years. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to play around with this one. And that's probably the best thing I could say about this thing, is I'm excited to play around with this camera, even if it isn't the most user-friendly camera. Anyway, guys, I'm Mark Hawk. Click that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you out there. Have a good one, guys.